Hi, this is Amy Romeo of the jewelry making and craft blog amyromeo.com, and on this channel I like to share fun and easy jewelry making and craft projects. Today in this video I'll be showing you how to cut faux leather with your Cricut to make these really pretty flower shaped hair claw clips. It's a follow-up to this video that I posted recently with a different shaped faux leather hair claw clip. It was really popular and I know you're going to love this flower one too. I have the SVG for you free, so let me first show you how to grab that so you can craft along with me, and then we'll hop right into the tutorial. So to get the SVG file for the flower claw hair clips sent to you via email instantly, just visit amyromeo.com/design208, and then you'll come to this page. You'll just enter your first name and your best email address and then click get the freebie, and I will email that over to you instantly. You'll get a download email and then you'll just download the folder. The folder will be zipped and you'll need to unzip it before you can access the loose SVG file inside. So let's go over the tools and materials we're going to use to make these faux leather flower claw hair clips. So this is a follow-up to this video that I just did where I have the SVG template for this file, and I'll link to that video for you so you can go watch it. I have the SVG, and I also talked to you about how to choose the right glue, because that's a very common question for these type of faux leather and hair clip projects. So make sure you go watch that video where I'm going to talk more in depth about glues. This one is going to be the flower, and what's interesting about it is the petals on the flower are very curved, so you'll need to fit your petal into this curve, and I've designed the little petal SVG so that it fits perfectly once you press it down. I also have a few little tricks to show you how I get the faux leather to dry nicely and flat in this curved area. So the flower claw clips, as far as I can tell, they just come in one size on Amazon or other places, and I just bought a couple of variety packs. So this one has some nice spring colors in it, and then this one has some nice neutrals and fall. This one came from this pack. They all seem to be pretty much the same size though. I'll link to these particular ones that I got and some other of these flower hair clip assortments on Amazon. So you'll need your claw hair clip, the flower one, and then you'll also need some faux leather. So like I said, it's fall time, but you could use really any faux leathers that you wanted. So I have some pretty fall prints. This is a glossy glitter. This is an embossed glitter, like with a texture that I think will be really pretty. But you could easily do spring prints as well for the spring colors. Totally up to you. If you're getting a pattern, you'll want to keep in mind how the pattern is going to look sort of arranged on these different petals. So if I was going to use this stripe, I would want to make sure I'm cutting all my petals so that the stripes all face out. But I'll show you a tip about that when we get to design space. Then you'll also want to use a Cricut. I'm using the Cricut Maker, but you could use the Maker 3, the Explorer Air 2, the Explorer 3, the Cricut Joy, or even the new Joy Xtra, because all of those machines have the standard fine point blade, and that's what I use to cut faux leather. You'll want some blue painter's tape and a purple strong grip cutting mat to cut your faux leather. And then you'll want some fabric scissors or craft scissors. I like to use these little 4-inch curved scissors for trimming up the edges of faux leather. You'll want a weeding tool, which is going to help you check the cut of the faux leather and see if you need to repeat the cut. Then you'll also need some glue. So as I mentioned in this video, I talk about the glue more, but the two glues that I recommend are a fabric glue, like the Beacon Fabri-Tac, I really like this, and then also Stick Fast. So this is more like a super glue, and this is a little trickier because if you get the glue outside the edges of your faux leather, it will leave those white super glue marks on your clip, which you don't want. So I would say beginner gluer, more advanced gluer. It's really up to you. This one's going to dry a lot faster, and this one is going to take longer to dry. As I mentioned, I have some tips for helping these dry faster. So I recommend having some cotton balls on hand, and then I'm using these miniature clothespins from the Dollar Tree. You could use regular clothespins. You could probably also use something like a binder clip, but we need something to get the faux leather to stay as we're gluing it in this curved area. So starting with a blank canvas in Cricut Design Space, you'll click on Upload and then Upload Image, and you'll browse to where the unzipped SVG file is for this project. I already have mine uploaded here, so I'll click on it to select it and then click Add to Canvas. And then all 10 of the petal shapes will appear on your canvas, They're sized exactly right for these clips, so there's no need to adjust the size. They're all grouped together. You can see that little box around them, but you really don't need to ungroup them unless you wanted to cut them from different pieces of faux leather. So for example, if you wanted to alternate your petals and have one be purple and one be pink and one be purple and one be pink, you could ungroup these, change the color on a few of them, and then Cricut Design Space would separate those two colors of petals onto two different mats, and it would be easy for you to cut them. But I'm going to be showing you how to cut the petals just from one sheet of faux leather, so we can leave them sized the way they are and still grouped. Remember to check that your machine here is the correct machine that you're using. If you're using the Joy or the Joy Xtra, then your mat size will be different when the Cricut sends your shapes to cut. So just make sure you have the right machine selected. So I'm using the Cricut Maker. I'll go ahead and click the Make It button. And I'm cutting my faux leather on a mat. And then here, Design Space is going to lay out all our petals in a neat little row. The first thing we want to do is mirror the mat, and that's because faux leather cuts in reverse or face down, so it's important to toggle that mirror button on. Now what we want to do is just arrange our petals by dragging them so that we can cut them efficiently out of the smallest piece of faux leather possible. So what I'm going to do is just sort of drag them and nest them here under each other. And what that will do is I'll be able to cut a piece of faux leather just over 5 inches wide and just over 3 inches tall. Now, if you wanted to, you could also arrange them, drag them around like this to really nest them together to, again, cut more petals out of a smaller piece of faux leather. My only caution on that would be is if you're using a print or a pattern, remember you want to keep in mind how your pattern is going to lay out on the petals. So like that striped faux leather I showed you, I would really just keep them all face up so that my stripe material will be on my mat. They'll all cut with the stripe facing in the same direction. If you're using an all over print or a solid, then that doesn't matter as much, and you could spend some time turning these and nesting them as much as you wanted to, but it's really not that big of a deal. So I'm going to make a note here. Again, my material 5.5 inches wide and 3.5 inches tall, and then we'll click the continue button. As I mentioned, I'm using the Cricut Maker, but you can use any of the current Cricut machines because every one of them has this faux leather paper thin setting. If you don't have it selected here as a favorite like I do, you can click on Browse All Materials and search for it, and then you'll be able to select it. If you're using the Explore Air 2, you'll need to turn your dial to custom first before you can find it here in this search. But I have it here bookmarked as a favorite, so I'll click on it. And then I always use more pressure when I'm cutting faux leather with this setting. Here we can see that the Cricut is recommending we use the regular fine point blade, so we're all set to go. Let's hop back over to my overhead camera and we'll get our mat prepared to cut. We'll cut out our shapes, and then we'll glue the faux leather petals onto the flower claw clip. So I've already trimmed that smaller piece of faux leather out of my print. This is an all over fall print, so it really doesn't matter what direction the petals are in. It'll just look like a pretty assortment of flowers. So I'm just going to put this pretty side down, flip it over, and put it on my mat, my purple strong grip mat. Press it down well with your fingers. If you have a brayer, you can roll over it too. And now I'm just going to use that blue painter's tape, tape it down on all sides. Trimming this material smaller like I did is a key to getting really good cuts with your faux leather when you're using your Cricut. Larger pieces of material tend to move around on your mat and come unstuck, and you don't want that. So we have our faux leather paper thin setting with more pressure ready to go. So we'll just load this into the Cricut and then begin the cut. So the cut has finished. The faux leather setting is an automatic double cut, so these have really cut twice. But I do always like to use a sharp weeding tool and just lift up the edge to see if the cut went all the way through. This is a really nice faux leather that I'm using. I'll link to where I got this from. It's from one of my favorite faux leather suppliers, and their quality is great and it cuts really well. But if you're using different faux leather, or if you're new to cutting faux leather, just make sure you're checking with that sharp weeding tool If you need to repeat the cut, you can, as long as you haven't unloaded the mat. So if I wanted to repeat my cut, I could just press that cut button again, or if I'm using the Cricut Joy, I can click on rerun on the screen and that will repeat the cut. You can always repeat the cut as many times as needed as long as you have not unloaded your mat. But my cuts look good, so I'll go ahead and unload the mat and remove my shapes from the purple cutting mat. So I've removed all the petal shapes from my mat. This is a great time to use little 4-inch curved scissors or embroidery scissors and trim up any edges of the faux leather if necessary. I didn't have to do that, but it's always a good idea to trim your pieces before you start gluing them. So I have some cotton balls and I have those miniature clothespins that I mentioned that I got from the Dollar Tree, and those will help us get this faux leather nice and flat into these curved petals. So the first glue I'm going to show you how to use is the Beacon Fabri-Tac, and this one is going to be more forgiving in terms of the time that you can move it around, but it's also just going to take longer to dry. So what I want to do is put a little bit inside the petal, not too close to the edges, and then just sort of a dab in the middle there. Let me see if I can show you that. This glue is a little stringy sometimes. There we go. So I've got it in the middle, a little bit on the edges, not too close. Now we'll just take our petal. Also, I wanted to mention, I like doing the petals with the clip last because those are harder to close pin down, and you'll see what I mean. So we'll just take our little petal, sort of line it up. The petals are designed to have a little bit of that edge of the clip peeking out on all sides. And I'm just pressing down with my thumb. If you have too much glue, it will seep out on the edges and it will seep out down here at the bottom. So if that happens, you'll want to clean up that glue. If you're using this glue, it's very easy to clean it up. You can just wipe it up, or you can use sometimes I'll use the sharp weeding tool and just get in there and scoop up the glue. If you're using the stick fast, then it's going to be a lot harder and it's going to leave a white mark. So this is a much more beginner friendly glue, and you can see just pressing down with my thumb, it really gets that nice curve in the faux leather. So the reason I have the cotton balls and the little tiny clothespins, if I just clothespin this down, which I could do, it will leave a little bit of an indentation, a little mark where that clothespin is going on the faux leather. So what I do to avoid that is I use a cotton ball. This is one of those jumbo cotton balls. A smaller cotton ball would be better. I might even just rip it in half. There we go. We just want something a little bit soft to place down on that petal, and then we'll clip it. And that will help keep the faux leather pressed down into the petal as the glue dries. So what I'm going to do is repeat that process all around this clip on this side using the Fabri-Tac. Then I'll flip it over and I'll show you how I glue with the stick fast. So I just want to show you before I go around and put the cotton balls and the clothespins, even though I've pressed these down with my thumb right when I glue them and they stick down, they have a tendency to pop up. So it's important you have either the clothespins or binder clips or something to hold these down while the glue dries. But see how nicely those little petals fit? You can see a little outline of the pop of the color, and then you can have that nice contour around the center part with the petal shape. So I'm just going to now repeat the process of the clothespins and the cotton balls, and we'll let this dry, and we'll come back and we will do the other side using the stick fast glue. So our flower hair claw clip has had time to dry, and I'll just remove all my little clothespins and my cotton balls. And then you can see how nicely the little faux leather petals sort of fit and contour into that petal shape. Isn't that pretty? So before I show you how I use the stick fast on the other side, let me show you this one that I did already with that pretty textured faux leather. Isn't that pretty? How it just fits in the petals. I think it's so beautiful. So again, you can play with the contrast of the clip color and the faux leather color, textures, patterns, solids. It's really up to you. So let's go ahead and do the other side of this clip with the stick fast. So this stick fast, as I mentioned, is like a super glue, so it's an instant glue. This is the thick formula. They have a couple different formulas. I really recommend the thick, or if you're using something like a gel control super glue, a gel hold, that's going to work better so that this glue doesn't slide all over these clips for you. So it's really important that you just put the tiniest amount of this glue because you don't want it seeping out of the edges. I like to do one petal at a time. Just place a tiny bit of glue right there in the petal. Let me see if I can show you how much glue that is. See, it's not much glue at all, just a very thin coating. And then we just take our petal, pop it into place. And this glue is like regular super glue. You just have a second or two to sort of shift around this position before it is in place. Use your finger to really press that down into that little cup shape. And then what's nice is you don't really need the clothespins or cotton balls or anything to hold these into place. They're just going to stay. What I like to do is glue each petal one at a time, and then I'll go back through and press down with my finger just to make sure that little bottom, the bottom scoop of the petal has the faux leather pressed down onto it. So this is my preferred glue, but if you're new to gluing or you're not very comfortable using super glue, go ahead and use that Fabri-Tac or craft glue and then just pin something in place to get it to dry over time. So I've gone through and glued all of the petals. I'm just going to go back around one more time and just press down with my thumb. And this one you can just set down to dry and it'll be ready to go. Aren't those cute? I hope you like this project and you're going to make some faux leather flower hair clips yourself. Don't forget to head over to amyromeo.com/design208 to get that free SVG file emailed to you instantly for this project. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.